Now, AMD is announcing RDNA 3 GPUs November 3rd.
And I have more hope now that I know the chiplet.
Yes, me too, actually.
That's actually really cool. That's
AMD
exciting.
has...
I had very little hope before I heard that.
I know. AMD GPUs have just been like a meme.
Yeah.
For so
long time. Yeah.
Really long time. It's been hard to recognize the GPU side of the business as the same company that's been absolutely like slaying the giant on the CPU side.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But now that I know RDNA 3 is a chiplet design, which is exactly what has caused such a thorn in Intel's side, I can't help but be kind of excited. I mean, Apple has kind of shown us that a multi-component GPU with a high-speed interconnect can work.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? Which I can't. I hate their naming scheme so much, but it would be the M1 Pro Max or whatever the top tier Ultra. I don't know.
No
whatever
idea.
the top tier M1 chip is has essentially two kind of separated GPU die areas with an interconnect between them. That's to my knowledge never been done before because of all. I mean, it's the same issue that caused microstuttering in SLI. Because those GPUs need to have such high-speed links between them in order to share data in such a way that they can operate without microstutter. That it just hasn't been feasible. But Apple did it. AMD has a chiplet design that clearly they're confident enough in to release, and RDNA 3 looks pretty good from what we've seen of it so far. So I'm excited. Grave PCMR on Twitch says, people need to stop bashing AMD GPUs. They are great and a better value than NVIDIA GPUs. Linus, you're hopelessly biased. Hold on. Let me come back with some great AMD GPUs. One moment, please.
Okay. There are some. They exist. I expect it's not actually a joke. I suspect he might actually bring one back. It's probably going to be really old. Because we do have like an area of the storage which is actually quite close to us, which is like really old school GPUs. And he's going to have to go back into the vault to pull one of these out. He might have to dust it off a little bit. I hope we have a brush. But, 290 and 290X. Yeah. Featured in Scrapyard Wars. Maybe those will come up. We'll see.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
No one saw those because those all went to mining.
Let us not forget the truly amazing best-selling product that was, oh man, the Radeon Vega 64 water-cooled edition. It wasn't even vaporware at all. Yeah, this product definitely actually existed. I remember a whole thing where I was like, yeah, we've been using a lot of like NVIDIA GPUs in our builds lately. And I went on Newegg, like mid-life cycle for this product. And I was like, oh yeah, like what's their like pricing like? Has it settled in a little bit since launch when it wasn't competitive at all? And there was literally one vendor that had like one SKU for Vega 64. And of that SKU, you know how you can just like key in the quantity that you want to buy and it'll correct you if they don't have enough? They had like 3 in stock. And this was on Newegg.com. Functionally, these things didn't exist. Big F. Big fail.
Didn't Vega
Big
64 non-water cooling exist, but they like all went to miners? That was my understanding.
Vega 56 kind of existed.
Oh, okay.
But even for that one, you'd go on Newegg.com and they'd have literally like 25 in stock. And on any GeForce SKU, individual SKU, they would have more than that in stock to give you some idea of what the sales disparity was. Guys, I don't make the rules here. I'm just informing you. And let us not forget the Radeon 7. I think they actually did make 7 of them.
I was going to say, I don't even know if I've seen this.
This was a product that, as far as anyone could tell, was a data center GPU that they, like, I don't know, had some extras of or something, and they did one run of them, and then it just quietly freaking disappeared. Like, okay, are we ever gonna talk about Radeon 7 again?
Oh
No?
boy.
All right, no problem. Guys, look, I don't make this stuff up. It's just a reality. I'm sorry. No, I'm not a fanboy. I've just been doing this a long time. I'm just jaded. I'm jaded and cynical.
R9 280 really solid? 9 years ago?
The R9 280 was a re-release of a GPU that they had already released like 2 years prior.
Wasn't it pretty good price and performance though?
Well, yeah.
Like 9 years ago?
Yeah.
Was it 9? I think it was 9 years ago. I know I just said that twice, but I think
Well,
so.
the R9 280 was announced at the Hawaii launch, where if I recall correctly, the only actual new card was the 90 class cards, and then the 80 was just a rebranded 7970, if I recall. And then didn't they rebrand it again as the 380?
It's been so long, I don't really remember any of this. I just remember the price performance was pretty solid, and people would sell them used for like nothing.
Guy in Matsai asks, did those Fury GPUs exist? That was yet another essentially vaporware AMD high-end GPU. They've released these high-end products that have been not competitive, and then because they're not competitive, nobody's actually buying them. Like, you got the weird, like, all-team red fanboy builds.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so you can't get board partner support for them, because when you do a run of boards, like, you're talking thousands, tens of thousands, not like a few hundred. You do not build a few hundred graphics cards. It's not a thing. So it just... And why would you go and buy thousands of something that you know is obsolete before you even build it, other than to just do a favor for AMD? There are exceptions. Yeah, 5700 XT. Yeah, strong card. Polaris. Yeah, Polaris was solid. It's so funny to hear people talking about RX 580. RX 580 is RX 570. 480, excuse me. 470 is 480, and 570. 470 is 570. And 480 is 580. They're essentially the same thing. It's like a firmware update. Somkin says a 7970 mined me 15 bitcoins 10 years ago. So
hey, did you trade those for a pizza, or did you actually hold on to them?
Linus is just focusing on the high end, which they've not done much with in the last few years. Yeah, because they couldn't. You don't think they wanted to? Everyone likes selling high-end GPUs. It's also a good time.
I think the main ones that we've been talking about today have been 4080, 4070, 4090. So we're talking about high-end cards.
Yeah, of course we're talking about high-end cards. But yeah, so I forget why I was talking about AMD. Oh yeah, right, because I'm actually hopeful for RDNA 3.
Yeah, me too.
I'm excited. It seems like over the last couple of years, they've really settled down in terms of their driver development. I really need to try it. I haven't tried it yet, but apparently their hardware encoding has gotten a lot better, which is a big one for me. Like AMD and NVIDIA, AMD could be 10% better price to performance than NVIDIA. And if they don't have good hardware, H.264 encoding, or, I mean, failing that, AV1 is fine. Well, until OBS supports AV1, I guess I don't care. But until they have solid hardware encoding, I'm not going to do it, because on the occasion that I do stream, I'm not going to want to suck up CPU cycles. But if they have it, man, like...
What do you stream?
I'm excited for a viable alternative.
What do you stream?
I stream Beat Saber.
Yeah, is that hard to stream?
Beat Saber. Well, yeah, you don't want to suck up CPU cycles when you're in VR.
Yeah.
It matters more than you'd think, because if I get a stutter, I get sick.
That's fair enough. Okay.
For real.
And Ano's can be pretty heavy once you're far into games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So the discussion
OBS already supports AV1 encoding. I didn't actually know that.
Sorry?
Someone in chat said OBS already supports AV1 encoding.
Really? Since OBS 28? Oh, well, that's exciting. I didn't know that. But that leads us perfectly into our discussion question here. So the big winner, it's in here as like a question. I added this. In my opinion, Intel. Because what it looks like is, if we look at last-gen games, because the 2 to 4x faster, well, that's for next-gen games with like DLSS 3 and stuff.
NVIDIA does this every single launch. Get used to it.
So when they say last-gen games, we're expecting only 1.5 to 1.6 times faster, which means that your price per FPS looks like it's actually not really changing that much. Essentially, they're doing the same thing they did with the 20 series, where they're taking the existing lineup and they're basically just going, yeah, however that performed, we're going to put these new cards higher.
Exactly,
exactly in line with the pricing of the last generation, instead of accounting for that they have actually gone down in cost for them for FPS per dollar. But don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. So if they do that, I think the big winner is Intel, because if they built a product that was supposed to compete FPS per dollar with 30 series,
then it still competes.
Then it might still actually compete. It'll be a lower end product than it would have been in terms of how far away it is from the top of the line in the market. But that doesn't mean that it won't be a totally valid and relevant product at the price that, Luke, the gamer who doesn't want to get another job so he can buy a GPU, can actually afford. Big winner.
Yeah.
Potentially Intel.
I also I don't know. I often have cheaper tastes than a lot of people, but a 70 series, or a 70 whatever, a 4070 starting at 900 is a lot.
A lot.
That's a ton of money. I know this is long time ago, but weren't we looking at 400? It's over doubled in the last 10 years, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
huge portion. $900 when you're looking at gaming builds now that are pretty solid for the majority of games that people play, for a mid-range gamer, that are around the price of your graphics card.
Mm-hmm.
I helped a buddy spec out a computer recently. Didn't have a huge budget. We priced it in at I think about $1,000 or $1,100, something like that. It's an okay amount of money. It's not a massive budget though. It's gonna do pretty good. It's pretty darn close to the price of the entire graphics card, and that he's gonna be completely fine. He already has the computer. He is completely fine in almost everything people play. Sure, he's not cranking Star Citizen, but there's 40 people that play, so that's actually not true. They passed $500 million in funding.
Yeah, that's in the WAN doc.
Is it really?
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, wow.
The 8800 GTX, which came out in 2004, MSRP $599 US.
8800, that was a sick card.
That was the top tier until they released a mid-cycle refresh 8800 Ultra that was just an overclocked 8800 GTX. It was essentially the same thing. And so we can't really...
That was a wicked time.
We can't really compare this to a 4080. And the reason for that is that it's not an apples-to-apples, die-to-die comparison. The 8800 GTX was a 384-bit memory bus, large die part. So really, from a die area standpoint, the equivalent would be the 4090.
Yeah.
Which is coming in at $1,600, which is somewhere about what does that work out to? About 2.5x the price. Now, if we go and let's play inflation calculator, all right? Because that's certainly been a thing. Inflation calculator USD, all right?
Especially a lot lately.
Come on, come hang with me, you guys. Let's play with the USD inflation. Okay, so if in 2004... I purchased an item for $599. Then in 2002, calculate $939. So it's entirely, it's entirely believable that you could pay $939 for a top tier GPU today.
That wouldn't seem too surprising.
No, that wouldn't be that surprising to me at all. So that's the actual price that they've come in with for the 4080 12 gig, which is, by the way, a mainstream tier part in terms of die area. But there's one problem with that argument that NVIDIA is making, that, well, semiconductors, electronics are getting more expensive. And that's every other electronics thing. Electronics is this magic, it has inflationary armor or something. Look at what the cost of a TV is compared to what it was in 2004.
It's actually crazy cheap.
It's wild. And this is another thing. TV manufacturers are under a lot of the same pressures that silicon manufacturers are.
Except there's more competition in their space compared to Mr. GPU team that has no one against them effectively right now.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
As you try to build bigger and bigger TVs, the fabs get bigger and more complex. As you try to cram in more pixel density, you have to deal with far higher complexity, far lower yields.
Failure rates.
Consumer demands have gotten much, much more stringent. People used to accept that you could have up to 5 to 7 dead pixels.
Pixels, yeah.
Now, they'll just take it back.
Yeah.
1 dead pixel, no, you're done. You're done. You're out. You're out. And reliability has become much more of a challenge. I suspect that LG does more warranty replacement of their OLED TVs than they probably did of the previous technologies that they focused on, just because of the nature of OLED. And if you run it at full brightness all the time with static imagery, it is going to wear out within the warranty period, which I don't think was a problem that they necessarily faced before.
Yeah.
So these other electronics industries are under a lot of the same pressures, and yet it's a very different result.
Yep. I'm very much hoping for other teams. I was already really hoping for Intel, and I know I'm saying this for like the 4th time this show, but the whole chiplet thing has me stoked for AMD's new offerings as well. We'll see how it goes.
One of our other discussion questions, actually, before we wrap this up, and we will soon, but one of our other discussion questions is how much of this is NVIDIA strategy? How much of this is higher pricing so that they can just get rid of the rumored enormous stockpile of 30 series cards that they have sitting there because they overproduced for a mining boom that busted?
So like making it not an improvement in price performance is
strategic.
Yeah.
Because they actually do not want you to buy 40 series.
Sitting on inventory is expensive.
Yeah, so this way they don't have to mark down their 30 series as much unless AMD sees a moment of weakness,
drops something big,
and decides to
twist the knife. They've done it before. They've done it before.
I'd like to see it.
That'd be sweet.
So here's my idea. I think that following just our, vanilla review of the RTX 4000 or whatever, when that comes out, following that, I kind of want to do a deeper dive into RTX 4000 versus RTX 3000 plus ARC as a dedicated AV1 encoding coprocessor. And specifically, I would want to look at it from like a streaming standpoint.
Yeah, I think you'd have to.
I think that would be sick.
That'd be sweet. I have always loved mixed team GPU setups. I remember way back in the day, you did some video in the house about running AMD and NVIDIA cards
I had
together.
SLI and Crossfire
yeah.
in the same computer.
Like, that was cool.
That was so stupid.
Ridiculous, but it was cool that it like functioned.
Yeah, it was pretty dumb. So the idea was that depending on whether the game was better optimized for NVIDIA or for AMD, you could switch which primary GPU your monitor was plugged into. Get the best of all worlds. Oh, by the way, I hope your GPUs don't need to breathe because they're all a solid brick installed in your PCIe slots.
I'm pretty sure we didn't water cool it, so very cool. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully the GPU world gets turned on its head because it's been pretty frustrating for a while now. CPU was frustrating for a longer period of time and then got solved.
Yeah.
Maybe AMD can solve it again.
I'd like to see it solved.